Okay, so I want to talk about something that I read on Reddit on a prepping subreddit. And if you didn't know that there was a thing, yes, people, there is a prepping subreddit on Reddit. It's not bad. Go check it out. It's pretty good, useful information on there. Anyways, somebody was talking about like Total Grid Down and how people wouldn't really, how people aren't really ready for a grid down. And yeah, I'm going to say a lot of people are not actually ready for a grid down. Not even a lot of preppers are ready for a grid down. And there's going to be a lot of things that a lot of people are not ready to see, even preppers. Okay, so who is going to be first really affected by a grid down, other than everybody being affected? Because obviously everybody is going to be affected by a total grid down. But who's going to be the first people to be harshly affected, negatively impacted in a life or death scenario? Now, if it was an EMP, then it would be hospitals first. Now, if it's just a grid failure, okay, then hospitals would not be really the first affected by total grid down, and this is because hospitals have a backup generator system. Now, that backup generator system only has so much fuel, okay, unless it's all solar and everything, and then you're dependent on how many sunny days you have, and this and that, the weather, and there's a lot of variables to solar. But let's just assume it's a traditional, typical diesel generator. You only got so much fuel in that generator, okay? So they can only last for so long, and if it's a total grid down, fuel stations are not going to be pumping fuel out. And even if they were able to get it out manually, they're only getting out what they have stored in their tanks, okay? There might be one fuel truck on the way, and that'll be it, okay? If it's total grid down, they're not making any more fuel. What's out there is out there. You're not getting any more. So whatever the hospitals have is what they have in reserve. It's not going to last forever. Eventually, when the hospitals run out of fuel, it's going to be Mad Max in the hospitals. Nursing homes, some states require nursing homes to have a generator, a backup generator, but not all states require them. That being said, even in states that don't require nursing homes to have backup generators, I'm sure there are plenty of nursing homes that do, but there are some that likely do not. So the people in nursing homes are usually elderly, and if the nursing homes don't have a backup generator, then the elderly are likely going to perish via heat and or extreme cold, hypothermia or heat stroke. Okay, and then the nursing homes with the backup generators, it's the same exact story as the hospitals. Okay, so like I said, they've only got so much fuel, so they're only extending the inevitable. Okay, the people that are really first going to be impacted are going to be the elderly living at home. And there's plenty of elderly people living at home. You're gonna have, let's say there's people that are on like at-home hospice kind of deals. I don't see them lasting very long. Anybody who requires special treatment, like somebody that comes to your home to get special care, they're not going to last long, okay? Anybody who requires medication that needs to be refrigerated, such as like insulin, they're not going to last very long, okay? It's going to be, and guys, that's not limited to the elderly at that point, okay? There's children who need insulin. There's children who require refrigerated medications. Guys, SHTF doesn't discriminate, okay? So a total grid down is going to be nasty. There's going to be a lot of death in grid down, okay? To the point where I don't know if everybody really realizes the extent of it. And it's not just going to be people dying left and right of exposure, or people who are on life support are, now they died because the electricity went out in the hospital because the generators finally ran out of fuel. It's not going to be just that. Looters are going to eventually loot the wrong place, get shot. There's going to be warlords that are going to come into existence. They're going to run out of resources. So warlords are likely going to form in cities or populated areas. And eventually they're going to run out of resources, and then they're going to try to expand into the countryside. Now, whether or not it's the warlord and their armies that are taking the hit, or if it's the people living out in the rural areas that are going to take the hit from them, it's going to be a lot of death and violence. But it's not just limited to violence. It's not just limited to people dying of the grid going down and they were on life support, or they couldn't, they couldn't have access to their refrigerated medications. It's not just limited to all that. I've made videos on this topic before, and that's going to be people dying of stupid shit that they could have avoided. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, guys, let me give you an example of what happened recently. So recently, I had to extract a feral cat. It did not have rabies, so that's good. But it bit through my glove into my thumb. I'm assuming it got a nerve. This was almost a week ago now. I don't know if you can see. This is about the extent that I can lift my hand. It's getting better, but it's still really, really messed up. Anyways, because I wasn't really exactly being reckless. I was doing what had to have been done at the time. But I took a risk on doing that. But lucky for me, the grid's not down. It's not a total grid down or anything like that. I have medications. I have painkillers and all that kind of stuff. And I had the correct first aid equipment to treat that. No problem. My hand bled for like a solid 5 minutes. Whatever. But in a total grid down, what if you didn't have access to cleaning supplies such as hydrogen peroxide or alcohol wipes, or anything like that, triple antibiotics that you can put on it to help heal it, get it all fixed up and everything? What if you didn't have access to that? Well, it could be a totally different story. That thin injury that was easily treatable could now turn into a infection, and an infection in a grid down could be deadly. Okay? Let's say you're sharpening a knife and it slips and you cut yourself deep. Okay? Let's say you take a fall because you were being reckless out in the bush. Okay? There's plenty of scenarios where if you do something stupid out of recklessness, or you took a risk, an unnecessary risk, and then you injure yourself, there's going to be a lot of people that do that, okay? There's going to be a lot of people that injure themselves and are not equipped to take care of that injury. So in turn, not all of them, but a percentage of those people will die. So you're going to have death due to a lot of stupidity, preventable things, because you took a risk, you didn't weigh the pros and cons, and the cons clearly outweigh the pros. Now obviously there's going to be times in SHTF and Total Grid Down you're going to have to take risks. Okay, everything you do is going to be a risk, and you need to make that a calculated risk. You need to assess the pros and cons, and you need to determine, hey, is this possibly going to get me killed? Do I have the option of taking my time with doing this certain task? Okay, you need to ask yourself these questions before doing really anything that is risky, especially grid down, where there is little to no help available. Another thing brought up was people are going to go crazy over losing certain services. Now, I live out in the country, and I do have trash pickup. Thank God I've got trash pickup. But I do have the issue of no bulk pickup. Okay, so what are my options? Either bury it or burn it. That's really my options for bulky shit. So in a Total Grid Down, you're not going to have trash pickup. You're going to have trash piling up on the streets. And sooner or later, it's going to rain. Sooner or later, that trash is going to get to the point where when it does rain, it's going to, let's say, deposit toxins into possibly the drinking water supply. You're going to have people that are going to poison themselves because of toxins such as trash. What happens when the sewage line is backed up? You can no longer maintain the sewage system, and now your sewage system is backing up. Health hazard, anybody? You're gonna have a lot of people who, like I said, you're gonna have a lot of people in the cities who are going to perish because either they're elderly or they're susceptible to illnesses and the elements. They can't handle the heat very well, so they rely on the AC. They can't handle the cold very well, so they rely on the heat, so on and so forth. Those who survive, which should be a a fair number, a percentage of those survivors are going to die of illnesses then, because sewage backing up, if you're running on city sewers, you're gonna have people that are gonna die of illnesses due to garbage piling up because you don't have trucks coming to properly and safely dispose of the garbage. And guys, I've worked with a landfill before for over a year. I was a roll-off driver, so I know what there is to safely disposing of waste. But you're going to have people that don't know anything about safe waste disposal. And like I said, you're going to have garbage piling up. It's going to get into the water system. You're going to have wildlife drinking this water, possibly becoming ill or contracting diseases. And then let's say that wildlife is let's say that wildlife does contract a disease, and then that wildlife is then hunted by you or me or Joe Average or whoever, and then that that animal has a disease that's transmissible to humans per se, and then you consume that meat, and let's say you cooking it didn't really get rid of that disease, and then you contract it. So there's going to be diseases spread that way. Guys, garbage building up is very dangerous. It's very bad. This guy is not getting in front of me. Yeah, you're gonna have a lot of stuff like that. People are just gonna, when you get garbage buildup, especially in the cities, when you're used to having clean streets and your garbage is taken away every week, when that service stops, not everybody, but you're gonna have a lot of people go crazy. You're gonna have a lot of people go absolutely crazy. And then you're gonna have certain people go crazy because they can't go to the spa, or they can't go shopping at the mall or something. You're gonna have a lot of people losing their minds. So again, it's not just going to be people dying of the elements, or because they were on specialized care, or they needed refrigerated medications, or you're not gonna have people just dying because they did stupid stuff. But you're going to have people losing their minds left and right. You're going to have new forms of, I guess, mental illnesses coming about. Regular people who they are not prepared in any way. Guys, grid down, total grid down. The first month of grid down could be potentially 100% Mad Max. And we're not even getting into the first year yet at that point. If it lasts for a year, the population is going to be very, very low. It's going to be decimated, okay? You think the animal population or the wildlife population during the Great Depression, when everyone went hunting and they decimated the wildlife population, and it took decades for them to rebuild the wildlife population. Think of that as the people population in the first year, except potentially even worse. Because while people are smart and intelligent, people are also extraordinarily stupid. irresponsible, and people do dumb things all the time. The first year of Total Grid Down, you're going to see bodies in the streets. You're going to see bodies rotting in people's homes. It's going to smell very bad. And at first, you're going to see a lot of wildlife just dead because somebody shot it. Like, let's say somebody shot a deer because they were desperate. They've never gone hunting a day in their life. And oh shit, they don't know how to gut the animal. They just thought, hey, I'll shoot this deer and then I'll figure out what I'm going to do next. There's a lot of preppers that say that there's going to be a lot of people that are going to resort to hunting and fishing and shit if the grid goes down, or there's severe food scarcity. Yeah, you know what? There might be. And they like to reference the Great Depression. And, they do that with good reason, because that's how it was during the Great Depression. But times, I've said it before and I'll say it again, times are different now, today, than they were back then. Back then, they grew up in the late 1800s, or they grew up in the early 1900s. Life was a lot harder back then than it is now. We have so many luxuries today that we didn't have back then. People were more survival oriented back then than they are today. Back then, people needed to hunt, or more so needed to hunt for food than we do today. They didn't have mass farms of cattle. They didn't have the cattle trucks like we do today, taking the cows to the meat market. They didn't have, semi-trucks like we do today, transporting goods from, point A to point B to the grocery store. Back then you couldn't go to the grocery store and buy 30 pounds of beef and 10 pounds of chicken and things like that, and keep it. These people were more self-reliant, and yeah, they could get stuff at the grocery store because that's when it was starting to come, more modernized, but they still had these skills to go out and hunt, fish, gut a deer, scale a fish. They had these skills. Most people today do not have these skills. Most people back then also had firearms. A lot of people in the cities today don't have firearms. So how are they going to go out and hunt and fish if they don't even have the equipment? And if they do have the equipment to do so, how many of them actually have that ability to go out and track down a deer, shoot it, gut it, process it, bring it home? Okay? How many people actually have that skill? I do. I know I do. But does Joe Average have that skill? I don't know. I don't think so. Not today. Not in today's day and age, I would argue. So, what my point is on that, you'll see dead animals left and right, is, let's say Joe Average does have a rifle. They do manage to shoot a deer, but they don't know what to do next. How many of them are going to leave that deer? How many are going to be shot accidentally in hunting accidents because you've got a bunch of idiots out there that have, they have a rifle but they've never gone hunting or anything, or they were a new gun owner and they don't really know a lot about it. Hunting accidents do happen. I would argue that we would see an uptick in hunting accidents. So, guys, the total grid down. Oh my God. This guy's now slowing down. Fantastic. A total grid down is going to be hell on earth for the first year. And if it remains grid down after a year, I would argue we'd start seeing new societies being built. And if it is with electricity or if it's without electricity, we'll see new places coming up, new places coming into existence, and new societies forming, and maybe new towns, and things might slowly start to go back to somewhat normal.